to Thursday loaded edition of Dirty Air right here on Racing America and a bunch of other places. Thank you all for checking in on the program here. Glad to be back with all of you back in the saddle once again, back in the clean air. It's where the short trackers gather. We talk about that each and every week. Week off last week, got to take a little trip over to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. First thing that I did, of course, when I got into the cab for the first time was to be sure and ask the gentleman that was driving me that said he had been a lifelong resident there of Myrtle Beach. You know what I asked him? Hey, man, where was that racetrack? So got all the insight on that. So really cool time away right there, but glad to be back with all of you guys as we embark into coming off a great weekend. And we'll talk about that here on the show. Landen Lewis is coming up here just in a matter of minutes, probably about 10 after. If you're on the east, in the Eastern time zone, around 7:10, and of course Central 6:10. If you're way out west, I can't count that high, so I don't know exactly. I think you guys are 2 hours ahead. So anyway, just a couple of things right there. If you guys have comments throughout the show, feel free to drop them in the chat, whether you're checking in on the Racing America YouTube page, if you're checking in on Facebook, however you are pulling all this in. And once again, I would love to hear thoughts from you guys because I am doing the 2024 Dirty Air Short Track Racing Spotlight. And when I say short track, what I'm wanting to do is spotlight racetracks in your area. So if you have a racetrack, a story, just something that makes it really cool. And I think at this point, especially when we start seeing racetracks that end up going by the wayside, I think the main thing is let's showcase your racetrack because we've got a huge platform right here where we can get you in front of people, maybe get a driver on, a couple of drivers from your racetrack and talk about the really cool things that are happening at your speedways. Because a lot of times, if you're going to dive on social media, what you're going to find is the negative things that are happening at the racetrack. And very rarely do racetracks or racetrack operators or whatever the case may be, do they get the accolades that they sure deserve. Going to start off on the show. Man, a little bit of breaking news, I guess, actually, if you were checking out the Racing America Facebook page, I was actually going to dive in and start talking about the different winners this past weekend. I will talk about Montgomery here in just a little bit. And I also do later in the show, I want to talk about the Rogers Dabs, who is a presenting sponsor of the Dirty Air program here with myself. I want to talk about that Pro Late Model Challenge. Things a lot more clearer now as to what's going to be happening with that. Dates officially out and so forth. But a little bit of breaking news is I was going to talk about those winners. One of the guys I was going to talk about was going to be Jesse Switzer, the winner there at the conclusion of the Northeast Classic there at New Hampshire. That was the guy that headed over to Victory Lane and was the apparent winner of that. And the breaking news, I think I saw it. Thank you all for checking. Yes, Marietta, Florida. Richard Stark already messaging right there out of Florida. So Lord knows we've got a lot of followers out of the Florida area. So yeah, if you guys want to let us know where you're checking in from, Marietta, Florida gets the first vote right there. But not first vote, but the first plug, I guess, as it would be. So what happened here was apparently at the end of this, obviously Switzer to tech, and they do whatever they do. But following, and I'm going to read this verbatim as it was actually written. Following that inspection, the red line performance engine used by that team, by the number 25 NH team, was deemed to have multiple infractions, which resulted in that car being disqualified for the win. And not only on top of that, the engine build or the engine manufacturer there as well, they are going to be thrown out, as we say. They're going to be thrown out there for a matter of time as well. And this is something that, well, I wanted to touch on this. And here's a quote from this. Quote, after inspection this week, the tech officials, industry experts, with a member of the 25 NH team present at engine teardown, it became clear that performance engine was not within the specs. And that's what happened right there. All right, we got Colchester, Vermont. So now we're going way up to the top. So I like that. We're going way over here. If I'm looking at it, we're going way over here, and then we're going way over here. That's why we do this program, because we can reach far and wide. It's a very long phone cable that we use to do this stuff. But so my thought, And again, this is like where I say sashay on up to the double R bar and let's have a conversation. So my thought with this, and this is where it's been, I can certainly attest to this from working with the Rogers Dabs folks, because one of the things that in Texas, on the dirt side, IMCA is huge in Texas. And I know with our friends at Crate Racing USA, I've had this conversation with Adam Stewart to where it's situations like this when folks want to talk about what can you do to kind of, I guess, it's a combination of level the playing field. If you break rules, the punishments and all of that, and you really don't want people punished. But if you break the rules, I mean, something has to happen. But like what you're doing right here, because I know with IMCA, the way that works across the nation is, let's just say that you buy an engine from said engine manufacturer with those sealed caps and so forth. And you guys feel free to chime in if I don't fully understand this. I think that I know this full situation, but I could be wrong. And I think this is the real equalizer where folks on dirt dive straight into IMCA just because of the rules like this. So it goes in, you have to go to the engine builder, certified engine builder that is able to replace those, like in our case, Rogers Dabs, GM Performance caps. You have to go in and put those seals back in. Let's say that happens. You get to a racetrack in a situation like this, like we're talking about at New Hampshire, to where an engine goes in and it fails tech. Not only does the driver and the team figure into the ramifications of whatever the track is doing right there, but that's where it comes down to the engine builder. And it really is a an equalizer, a field leveler, I think, if you want to call it that, because and it's not. I mean, I know a lot of racers. Hey, man, I've done it. I was a racer for a long time. I haven't retired, but I raced for a long time, full time, and it was always one of those things when it's when you get caught and you're about to get thrown out. It's like, oh, yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, old story. Back in the days here in Texas, we had a feature race that I wound up winning. I ran second place in a feature race out here at the old Austin track, and the guy that won the race just put an ass whooping on us. There's no other way to say it. You know what he did back there. Used to have cam lobe rules and so forth and lift rules back in those days in the stock car classes, and so the dude gets, we all go into tech and we got to pull cam. We got to pull the cam. And that's, there's nothing more fun than being outside in a Texas summer at about 11:30 in the evening, because the program runs late, and you got to sit there and pull your cam and the pits. There is nothing more fun. That is, I always looked forward to that. As a matter of fact, there were times that if we may have been a little fat in the cam, I think I fall back to fourth because I didn't even want to do that stuff. Legal or not. Legal or not. But so this guy gets caught for a fat cam. And it's like, well, shit, I just grabbed the one off the kitchen table. Right. But what I'm telling you right here is a rule like this, that's where, and again, oversights and so forth. And this is not to disrespect the driver. This is not to disrespect anything. I'm just using this as a situation to where, when it comes to folks that want to in short track racing, when you want to put things on the straight and narrow and try to do things to equalize stuff, this is the way you do it. I mean, it's these situations. I mean, these are the ways to do it. I mean, I hate to say it, that unfortunately, you have to punish not only the team, but whether it was intentional or not, this is why you do those kind of things. So again, just that was breaking news that dropped about 41 minutes ago, I think it was, and you can check out that full article on Racing America on Facebook with just all of that that's mentioned right there. Speaking of stuff up north, speaking of New Hampshire, coming up later in the show towards the bottom of the hour, maybe just a little bit beyond that, Trevor Sanborn is going to join. Man, it's like every time I get to talk to Trev, we're talking about really cool things. Usually when he dives on one of my programs, but boy, he had a rough ride there at New Hampshire. I'll gently touch on that, and we'll discuss that, I'm sure, right here on Dirty Air. Continuing our show here, Dirty Air, on Thursday. Glad you all are with us, and we've had a really good show so far. And we continue to just, like I always say, it's where the short trackers gather. We just all talk short track racing. That's exactly what we do. And we're going back once again to the guest line, and really excited to welcome in. So many great young talents that we're watching around the country in the various series and so forth. Another one, first time here on Dirty Air on Racing America. We welcome in Landen Lewis. Landen, how we doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for taking the time here this Thursday evening. So, Landen, kind of talk about the season for you so far. Diving in with the Cars Tour, that man, I love that series.
Yeah,
Talk about that.
It's super competitive. Obviously, my first start in the Cars Tour and first late model stock race ever was last weekend or 2 weeks ago at Hickory Motor Speedway, and it was really good. And our finish wasn't great. We qualified on the pole, and that was like a big deal because I think first to eighth was a 2 thousandths off the pole. So just super close field. Everyone's super competitive, and we qualified on the pole. So that was like, okay, this is like off to a good start. And then in the race, we just didn't just fire off like we needed to, and felt like we just worked on the car and tried to get it the best we could. And I made a lot of mistakes myself. I guess just learning the cars and trying to learn them at such a fast pace. But we ended up finishing 13th. Not a great finish, but a good finish for us as a team. The car was in one piece. And then we just got done racing at New River, All-American this weekend, qualified 13th and drove to 8th. So that was cool to be able to drive forward, not back this time. And I felt like I cleaned up a lot of my mistakes over the weekend, which helped.
Absolutely. Landen, let's go back to that first race. I mean, it's one thing, first time in one of these cars, but then to race there, silky smooth surface, just smooth as glass. Kind of talk the allure right there of getting that initial race in there at a legendary place like Hickory.
Well, Hickory, I've only been there a couple times with the legend cars, but it's so different with the bigger cars. Everything moves a lot more, and it's pretty rough, right? But that's the characteristics of it, and why people go and watch racing there and watch the short track racing there, because it puts on a good race. That's the good part about it, but it's definitely rough. And that being my first ever late model stock race and it being at Hickory, I mean, what could you ask for? I mean, you're going to get the best of both worlds, learn how to drive on a really rough racetrack and get to learn a late model stock. And I feel like I've heard a lot of people say this, but now that I've raced there, I find it true that if you can get around that place, you can get around a lot of places in the Southeast.
Yeah. These bull rings, they tend to they're a different breed right there. I'm glad you mentioned about the legends, and I know that you're still doing that as well. Kind of talk about that. I went the reverse of you. I drove many years, in super stocks and those type of cars, and then wound up in a dwarf car. And I think if it had gone the other way for me, where I would have been in the short wheelbase, high horsepower to short wheelbase ratio car, minimal grip at times. Kind of talk about that when it comes to getting in a big full size late model stock versus that legend. I think the legend car probably has helped you in that respect.
Yeah, it's helped me a ton. I had this question a couple weeks ago, and people asked me, what can you carry over to the late model stock from the legend car? And, there's a lot of power, like you said, such a short wheelbase. So you take a lot of car control and you learn a lot from the legend car, and you can really take that over to the late model stock when, especially on these longer races where the tire's going away and there's no more saving and you're driving as hard as you can and you're slipping and sliding. The car control definitely comes in play. And I feel like the legend car teaches you the most on that, just because, you have all the power in the world, more power than you really need, and not a lot of tire and a short wheelbase. So it's definitely tough to drive. But if you can drive one of those, you can drive anything. I personally think, and there's a reason why Keelan and Kevin has Keelan in a legend car. There's a reason for it.
Absolutely. We'll talk about Kevin here in just a second and all of that. But let's just kind of talk about your progression. Obviously, the legend background right there for you. Obviously, still a very young dude, 18 years old. So kind of talk about how it all started and how you've gotten to this point to make it into a late model stock with the Cars Tour.
So I started at 4 years old racing go-karts at a local dirt track that was by the house, and I watched my dad race. I never got to watch my grandpa or my great-grandfather, but I'm a fourth generation to do it, so that's cool to be able to keep just bringing the legacy on through the family. And started racing go-karts at 4, ran those till I was 12 years old, and then hopped in a dirt modified for Ron Hornaday at 12 years old and started racing that and had some success and learned a ton. And from there on, it brought to legend cars, and I've been doing those for the last 5 years since that moment. And that kind of led into this deal as well with Kevin, me helping Keelan out on the legend cars and building that relationship. And now I'm actually at KHI right now. I work here full time and race on the side every now and then. So it's really cool to be able to work on my own race cars as well. I really enjoy that, and it just teaches me a lot about how much effort and work it takes to get to the track every week.
Absolutely. I think that's a big part these days to realize that hard work and everything that goes into that. Also for you, some market time. Kind of talk about that very successful and fulfilling career that you've had to this point in the various ARCA series.
Yeah, so I've kind of done it backwards, like you said earlier. I didn't go straight from a legend car to a late model and then an ARCA car and a truck. I went straight from a legend car that's like really, really small, right? And you sit in the middle to an ARCA car and had early success. Won my second race out and then went at DuQuoin, which is a dirt race. Ty Gibbs finished second and Kid Trader finished third. So that was really cool to be able to race against those guys. And at that year, Ty was doing really well.
Oh, lost his audio just for a little bit right there. Let's see. We still got you, Landen. I see you, but I think your audio may have kind of flipped there for just a second. We'll work and see if we can get him back on. Looks like there he is right there. I'll tell you, just a little hiccup right there. Let's see if we got him back yet. Still not yet.
Yeah.
Like. There we
Good
go.
job.
How
I don't
about
know
that
what
right
happened.
there?
Anyway,
that's all right.
Dealing with Wi-Fi and internet. But yeah, so won at Kern,
you.
and now Kevin owns that racetrack, so that's pretty cool. And it's just ran a couple truck races last year, and now I'm going not so much. I don't consider it backwards. Late models, they're more tough than anything, in my opinion. Running the truck and the ARCA, it's the most competitive field that I've ever raced against, and these guys don't play around.
That's right. That's right. Definitely major league type of racing right there.
Yes.
So Landen, for you've mentioned a couple of names right there. Obviously, getting the nod right there is KHI. Well, Kevin, as they get back into racing again. I mean, a full-time race team, and you're a part of that. And then you've got the tip in the cap right there with Ron Hornaday. Just talk about having those guys as mentors and having those guys on your side that you can kind of mold your career and try to progress the way they did, man. That's got to be something pretty exciting for you, man, with those legends on your side.
So like nowadays, like you don't get much practice, right? And there's not a lot of practice time, especially as you move up into truck series, extended series, and cups, so on and so forth. You don't get a lot of practice time. So having Kevin, Ron, all these amazing people around me, I feel like I'm a step ahead when I show up to the racetrack because I have those people in my phone, or I go and see them and ask them and just try to absorb all the answers that they give me about these different racetracks that I go to and ones that I've never been to before. And so I feel like it gives me a step ahead when I show up because they have so much knowledge at these bigger racetracks where air matters, just a lot of different things that you wouldn't even think about, but it matters. And having Kevin and Ron in my corner is just, I feel like a step up and helps me when I get to the racetrack.
Absolutely. So lastly, Landen, for you, obviously with the Cars Tour and Legends, that's on the docket here in 2024. Anything else that you think that may pop up right there? I think for you guys, it's one of those things where you always have to have that helmet in hand because you never know when you're going to get that call to drive in various series and so forth.
No, you never know. There's been a lot of times, like considering, like I ran Sonoma 2 years ago and had no clue that I was going to race it until the week of, and that was actually when Carson Hosevar broke his leg, and he was actually supposed to drive that car in the ARCA race, and they gave me a call, and I ended up racing it, and I should have won the race, and ended up getting wrecked in the last lap going for the lead, and just there's incidents like that you just never know. So my dad's always told me that I never show up to a racetrack without your helmet or a fire suit because you never know if someone gets hurt or, you just never know the situation that you can be put in. So definitely always ready for an opportunity. I don't have anything else right now besides the late model program here at Kevin Harvick's and the legend cars as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a full plate right there. But like you said, You just absolutely never know. Landen, man, this has been a blast. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the success, and looking forward to following you throughout the rest of the season, my friend.
Thank you for having me on, and like to thank my sponsors for allowing me to be able to do this. King's Custom Panels, Rent Source Property Manager Group, Kevin Harvick Incorporated, Ron, Kevin, Delana, Candace Hornaday, for all they've done for me in this short period of time. I feel like at a higher level, and I just can't thank everyone enough. And thank you for having me on, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. You betcha. Sky's the limit, dude. Good luck,
Thank
and
you.
we'll be following you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
You got it, man. Take care.
Yep.
You bet. The young talents that we see popping up. I mean, great conversation right there with Landen, and I think that that's a cool thing about with short track racing like this, and whether we're on dirt or asphalt, as we resume here on Dirty Air. That one, obviously, a recorded interview that we had yesterday. Y'all like that? How I turned to that camera and then turned this way that fast. You like how my skin tone changed? That's why I always talk about on the show here that sometimes it's live, sometimes it's not. And I purposely, let me tell you guys, I purposely left when his cell phone service dropped right there. I left that there on purpose to make y'all think it was live. Just to see if you guys were going to be able to tell the changes that I was doing right there. I ain't that quick. My hips are horrible. I can't turn that fast. Anyway, Landen Lewis right there. Like you talked about, I mean, and this goes back to we're watching a resurgence, I can tell you here in Texas, of the Legends cars. And we've seen so many different drivers that have come through the Legends program that, I mean, look at them right now. I mean, Joey Logano, I mean, all the different guys that we're talking about that have gone through that program. And that's why I'm really excited to see, I know here in my home base in Texas, like I said, is that we're seeing the Legends built back up again, because I think that's something that's it's a great series. It's a great starter to where you groom the drivers for what's coming up. And I know, like, what I really like here in Texas, and again, you guys on the dirt side will have to tell me, because I know here in Texas on dirt, it's kind of a different world. When I talk about factory stocks here versus factory stocks in other parts of the country, they're like, that's not our factory stock. But what we're seeing in Texas with the divisions that are starting the youngsters in, or the new drivers in, it's a scaled down limited or sport mod. And I think that's so cool, because if you're going to race dirt, you're going to aspire to run an IMCA, or you're going to aspire to run a modified, a big mod. You're going to aspire to do that. And you're probably going to have to do a limited modified. You're probably going to have to do a sport mod. You're going to have to do all that. And I just think that it makes a hell of a lot more sense to teach for young drivers to learn that way, in what they plan to be progressing towards. My man Magic Mike Knotts checking in. I know he was on track there at Mobile International Speedway this past weekend. Great event there at Mobile as they continue to roll along there. And I'll tell you a little bit later on in the show, when I start previewing some of the races that are coming up. Man, we got that big doubleheader that's coming up, man. Then it's going to be so cool at the end of April. I will talk about that. Before I step aside for just a second, Oxford Plains has been postponed. You probably heard that or saw that yesterday, depending on what social channel that you're on, but you know that it's bad. And by the way, as I'm doing this part of the show live, I'm looking out and we've got hailstorms and all this different stuff coming. So, yeah. People want to come visit Texas. They're like, when's the best time to come? I'm like, but Oxford Plains postponed over the weekend for saturated grounds. Saturated grounds. When you're canceling on a Wednesday for saturated grounds already, man, you know that you've got some nasty stuff going on. So hopefully everything good there. Midas of Oxford, Mississippi. Of course, that is the home of Roger Dab Chevrolet, Brandon, Mississippi. So, like seeing that right there, boy. And I'll tell you again, that's what's so cool about doing this show on Thursdays, is that we get folks from all over the place, and emails again, looking to showcase your local short tracks. I don't care where you are. It gives me hope when I see all these different states represented. Dirty Air Racing Show at gmail.com. So be sure and let me know what your racetrack is. Great stuff still to come. Thank you for Landen Lewis for checking in right there, talking about his experience at Hickory, going out there. And when you talk about old lady racetracks like that kind of humble you, sounds like Landon got a little bit humbled right there, and he owned that, and that really is going to be a name to be reckoned with for a lot of years to come. Hey, before I step aside for a moment, you see me wearing these cool polo shirts right here, the Dirty Air. I'm backwards. The Dirty Air Nike shirts. These are for me because this is my program. But there is Dirty Air apparel. There's Dirty Air T-shirts. There's hoodies. There's caps. There's all of that cool stuff. You can actually go to the Dirty Air show page, and you'll find that link right there. And it's the on-demand shirts, the great folks in San Antonio that take care of not only myself, but a lot of great racers around here and a lot of great racers around the country. They will hook you up on a great budget, whether it's embroidered, whether it's screen printing, whatever it is, out of San Antonio, out the door, on your doorstep as soon as possible. On-demand shirts, a quick word from them, and then our presenting sponsor, the great folks at Rogers Dab Chevrolet GM Performance in the aforementioned Mississippi.
Rogers Dab Chevrolet was just a regular car dealership here in Brandon, Mississippi, and about 10 years ago we started branching off with our parts department, and we became one of the top 3 largest parts departments for powertrain, for engines and transmissions in the country. So in doing so, why not support the industry that supports the most powertrain, which is your performance engines and racing? And there's a need there that was not being filled. There was a customer base that was not being taken care of.
We keep the sealed crate motors in stock, the 602, the 604s, the 525s. But whether you're driving a late model or a modified or a street stock, we've got an engine for your car. We also carry the accessory kits, KRC drives. We also do Gary Williams carburetors. We've been in this for a couple years now, and we're doing it to benefit the racers.
Everyone is trying to get into racing, knows that it's not a cheap sport to get into. So price structure was a big thing in taking care of the racers, and we knew early on that we did not want to make this a profit center. We wanted to make it about the racers. Price is a big thing. However, customer service is where it's at. And we've had several instances where racetracks have called us and said, hey, we had a driver out here qualifying and their engine popped. And it's Friday night at 9 o'clock. And our team, Benny and Ryan, are calling me and saying, hey, boss, we need to take care of this race car driver. Let's get them an engine as soon as possible. And they'll be here before sunrise the next morning on Saturday morning, pulling that engine, getting it to that person so they can get it installed and be racing that night. That's the kind of customer service we want to deliver.
What you get from Rogers Dab Chevrolet GM Performance in Brandon, Mississippi. Like I said, title sponsor of the show, and it really is their number one priority, because I get that. Full disclosure, I do some work with them as well, and it's, the question I get, and I do invite you to shop. Shop the price around. If you got a quote, I've had folks that end up buying something somewhere else, and I'm like, hey, send me the quote. So tell me what you paid, without giving it to Rogers Dab Chevrolet. I'm like, here, what would this have been for RDC? And we usually beat it, and that's how you get a brand new customer. So good stuff right there at Rogers Dab Chevrolet. Matt Craig is the winner. He breaks a drought there in the Southern Super Series, back to victory lane at Montgomery as he wins, and just a hell of a finish right there at the end with John Bolin and Stephen Nassy coming out of turn number 4. Obviously at the front, it was Craig that in great fashion winning that race last weekend at Montgomery. So the win right there for him, but the battle behind him, as those two go by the wayside, Dustin Smith, great finish right there for the driver out of Mobile, Alabama. Dustin Smith in the Smith Scrap Metal Special, as I like to say when I get to call those races there at MIS or wherever Dustin may be. Comes home second, followed by Billy Van Meter, Gio Ruggiero, and Casey Roderick as they round all of that out. So speaking of that, and the reason that I bring up the Southern Super Series is because right about here, that's what we want to talk about right there. That is a huge ASA Stars Southern Super Series doubleheader that is coming up, and this is the old school. This is the old school doubleheader that had been long sought after. When Mobile kind of popped itself back up, when Gina got that place up and rolling once again, and obviously the cooperation right there that we're seeing between Tim over at Five Flag Speedway and Eddie and the folks at Mobile. You've got that old doubleheader back-to-back. How about that? Coming up is going to be Friday, April the 26th at Five Flag Speedway, and then you will have Saturday over at Mobile International Speedway on Saturday, April the 27th. SouthernSuperSeries.com is the place to go for additional information. And how cool is that, man? To that right there. I'll tell you what that reminds me of. And that was back in the days because, like I've said so many times here on the show, is when I would have to read about this stuff, I either had to wait for the weekly newspaper publication or whatever that it was going to be, that was going to come in the mail. That's where I had to catch all of that stuff as to what was actually happening, what was going to be going on. That's where I caught that. And it was always that right there that they would do that doubleheader right there. We had, with All Pro. And that's where I'm going with this, is back in the days here in Texas, I think my longtime Texas folks will remember this, that you would have the All-Pro Super Series, the Bob Harmon, the $30,000 All-Pro Super Series that would come rolling through Texas every once and again. You would have a Friday night show in Corpus Christi, and then on Saturday they would go down the road to the half mile in San Antonio at Highway 16, and that kind of was the difference right there. That's about 100-mile difference or so forth that you would have in between, depending on how the crow flies there down I-37, and that's kind of what you have. That's here in Texas, and that's kind of what you have right there across the bay as they head back over to Mobile for that big race. And the best part about this doubleheader has always been to me, and this was way back before I really understood either one of these places or knew anybody in any of those areas, is that you had the two big half miles. Got the two big half miles, and man, it's going to be so cool to have that back again. So it'll be Matt Craig, the winner there at Montgomery. He will lead the charge, and we are starting to see a lot. We are starting to see a lot of different names that are entering for both of those events, and I think that's going to be really cool. The Pass Tour over there at New Hampshire. Trevor Sanborn set to join us here in a little bit. Again, this is the live part of the show. And these are some of these things I don't coordinate, so I'm just kind of waiting. I'm just like the honey badger. I'm just kind of watching. But Eddie McDonald is the winner there at New Hampshire, followed by DJ Shaw and Johnny Clark on the Pass Tour. And when you want to talk about the stalwarts of the Pass Tour, and I'm mentioning those three names right there for the Northeast Classic. I mean, that is Northeast super late model racing right there when you get those three dudes that are going to the top of the heap right there, and they win this past week right there. And Oxford Plains, I talked about that. That has been postponed. However, lots of stuff that's coming on right here on Racing America, and this is a good weekend to just kind of sit back and make sure you're a subscriber and check out the cool stuff. Coming up on Friday, that's tomorrow, you're going to have local racing at Nashville. That's a subscriber event. I mean, be a subscriber, and you can check that out. Saturday, the Pro Late Model 100. The Pro Late Model 100 coming up at Nashville. And then you'll have the Race of Champions as well. And then you'll have Slinger coming up on Sunday, that good Sunday afternoon racing that we always talk about. That'll be happening there at Slinger. Stepping away one more time. When I come back, going to talk about some other races that are coming up. Man, we got some big ones. Stick around. Clean air is good. Times like this. Dirty air is just a tad bit better. More coming up.
Hooters and racing go together like killer wings and ice-cold beer. Racing has been at the core of Hooters' DNA from the beginning. Whether it's backing the best drivers or serving up the best food on race day, race fans know Hooters is the real deal. Big screens, great food, good times. Hooters, the official home of race fans.
Subscribe today to RacingAmerica.tv to join our racing community and get access to over 200 live pavement short track races each season from across the U.S. and Canada. Plus, RacingAmerica.tv has exclusive and behind-the-scenes coverage of the NASCAR Cup team.
Enjoy competing with your teammates.
We already know. Subscribe today and claim additional discounts and access. And your front row seat to watch the excitement and drama.
Car lifts up in the air.
From grassroots to NASCAR, become a subscriber today at the home for race fans everywhere.
You're watching Racing America right here on Racing America.
Racing America. It's in our DNA.
Racers are dedicated to winning. And Chevrolet Performance's 3 factory-sealed Circle Track crate engines can help you get to the checkered flag first. Whether you're a weekend warrior or a touring hero, on dirt or pavement, Chevrolet Performance Circle Track crate engines are engineered to win. Right out of the box.
It is Dirty Air with Rodney Rodriguez. Welcome back to your Thursday. Glad that you were part of this. I want to talk about this because this is a big deal. I was talking there about Montgomery. Stephen Nasse, the winner this past weekend there at Montgomery Motor Speedway. We've talked about this a couple of different times in the some of the discussions right there as we talked about the Pro Late Model Challenge. And this is, again, a Rogers Dabbs deal that they have put together and we've seen a really nice resurgence here of the Pro Late models as they have built. It's a really good following. It's a really good car count. It's a really good event. It seems like each and every time that you get one of these Pro Late model events happening. But what's happening right here with the Rogers Dabbs Pro Late Model Challenge is you have these southern tracks, tracks along the southeast Gulf Coast that have all kind of teamed together, and they're working on this challenge with some additional funding coming from Rogers Dabbs Chevrolet. But the dates were announced. A little bit earlier this week. I think it was probably on Tuesday when that came out. So let me get that graphic out of the way right there, and I'll talk to you eye to eye. So you obviously had the April 13th event that just passed there at Montgomery. So that's race number 1. So obviously looking at that, Stephen Nasse sitting in the best place because he was the race winner right there. So coming up again, and I love the way that these are spaced out for the additional money. Like it said right there, it's going to be a minimum $5,000 award that's going to be presented to the winner of this challenge with Rogers Dabbs Chevrolet. You got a big break. May 13th will be your next race, and that's going to be over at Five Flags, so over to Pensacola. You take a break right there, May 31st, then you go to July 13th, and then you go to Nashville, and that's where you get the Nashville folks involved. And this is really the cool part for me because I think what's going to happen with the Pro Late Model Challenge is that you're between all of these tracks. If you look at all of these tracks, you've got pretty solid Pro Late Model bases. And you've got guys that will travel around, whether it be in the Alan Turner Pro Late Model Series at Pensacola or the different the Pro Late Model Series. So you go to Nashville, then you're August 23rd. This is really cool. So here we go. I was just talking about the doubleheader coming up at the end of April. Well, coming up on August 23rd, you'll have Rogers Dabbs Pro Late Model Challenge race at Five Flags Speedway in Pensacola. The next day, just like we're going to do here at the end of April, we're all going to do that cavalry. We're all going to convoy over to Mobile International Speedway, and we'll do it August 24th. So you got Mobile in the mix there as well. Coming up October 5th, it is back to the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. And then on October 13th, it all rounds out the Pro Challenge Series. The Pro Late Model Challenge Series rounds out there at Montgomery Motor Speedway. And again, just to be very clear about this, these dates and everything that I'm giving you right here, that is strictly for the Rogers Dabbs Performance, GM Performance Parts Pro Late Model Challenge. Pro Late Models will run their schedules as intended. Those dates, though, is where those tracks have gone in and solidified and chosen those dates as their Pro Challenge dates. So again, it's going to be it's like a race within a race is what you're going to have on those dates that I gave you right there, because that's how all that's going to work. So really super excited right there. Another doubleheader that's going to come up between Pensacola and Mobile. Man, I love that. I love that a lot. Hit the wrong thing, and now I'll pull it up. Coming up on Saturday, April the 27th. Again, that's the Saturday there of the Mobile race on the back-to-back doubleheader right there. But Cordeal, Ricky Brooks, and the great folks over there, as they have fired off, and you want to talk about enforcing rules and so forth and so on, it really looks like that's what's happening there, just from various posts that I've seen, and that is not a surprise when it comes to Ricky Brooks. That's a great Facebook follow, by the way. Read some of the stuff that he puts on there. He had a really good one about parts and so forth. I know I led the show off talking about a disqualification and so forth, but you'll have the third annual Pure Stock Spectacular right there at the brand new rebranded Cordeal Motor Speedway, CordealMotorspeedway.com. So that's coming up a little bit later in the month. So lots of things that are going to be coming up in April. The doubleheader that I'm talking about right there, you've got the Cordeal race. It's just a lot. And again, this weekend, nothing happening at Oxford Plains, but you will have the Slinger stuff coming on Sunday. Your good old Sunday racing that you get from Slinger. Before we close it out, one more word from our great friends at Rogers Dabbs Chevrolet GM Performance.
Racers are dedicated to winning. And Chevrolet Performance's 3 factory-sealed circle track crate engines can help you get to the checkered flag first. Whether you're a weekend warrior or a touring hero, on dirt or pavement, Chevrolet Performance circle track crate engines are engineered to win. Right out of the box.
Rogers Dabbs Chevrolet GM Performance. And again, I talked about our friends at On Demand Shirts in San Antonio. If you are looking for some of that Dirty Air merchandise, number one, if you happen to find me at a racetrack near you, ask me. I've usually got a bag full that I would be happy to give you a T-shirt or so forth. But if it's one of those things where we don't cross paths, you can scan that QR code right there. It takes you directly to the Dirty Air online store, as it's called, and you can see all the great varieties of merchandise that you can find courtesy of our friends at On Demand Shirts. As well, guys, I do want to remind you the 2024 Short Track Spotlight. I would love to talk to you guys about your local short tracks right here on Thursdays. Like I said, clean air is good. Times like this, dirty air is a tad bit better. This is where the short trackers gather. Every handle that I can think of. Let's showcase your racetrack. Let's showcase your drivers. It is the Dirty Air 2024 Short Track Spotlight. Dirty Air Racing Show at gmail.com. Dive on there. Send me over some logistics and information. Tell me who to get a hold of. We'll get them on this program, and we will talk about your racetrack, because that's what this show is all about. Like I said, it is where the short trackers gather. Well, I think we're about ready to put this one in the oven. Another great program. Thank you all for being a part of this. Weather, I think, is going to be an issue for some folks around the country. We're about to have that here. I can tell you in Texas, we've got some Friday night short tracks that I think are going to be fine. Saturday night tracks, I think that they're going to be in a lot of trouble, because it does appear that we're going to have some weather here, as it has already started around the country. Again, friends, check in, ASA Stars Tour. Check out there with Ricky and all the great folks with everything that they're doing at UARA, Southern Super Series. Follow all of that stuff. Follow them on Twitter, and stay in tune with everything that they're doing with those great series and your local short tracks around the country. As I always say, at the end of this show, this weekend, when you're looking for something to do, go find a local short track to go to. Go consume the experience. Go, if you got a national show that's coming in, go check it out. Go be a part of that. And if you can't do that, find a streamer like Racing America or all the other great streamers around the country that are showcasing short track racing, because this is where it all starts, guys. This is where it all starts. We watch the NASCAR stuff, and that's great. They do whatever they do. But when it comes to homegrown racers, it's our local short tracker. So please find a short track, find a streamer, and be a part of short track racing. Friends, this is where the short trackers gather each and every Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. It is Dirty Air. Clean air is good. Times like this, dirty air, a tad bit better. See you next Thursday, guys. You all have a great weekend.